Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wind Down Friday. This is Maurizio, and welcome to this new episode. And today, our guest is Jay Barrus, president of Rohm Semiconductor Americas. Hi, Jay. How's it going?
Doing very well. Great to be here, Maurizio, and thank you for inviting me on the show. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Welcome aboard. So, Jay, you joined Rome in 2003, I guess. Please correct me. So, what have been, let's talk about your experience. What have been the most significant challenges working for a Japanese company, Japanese-based company like Rome, especially if we are talking in terms of business, culture, and speed?
Yeah, Maurizio, as you know, that is a loaded question. And since you're recording this, I do have to be kind of careful about how I answer it, right? Um, yeah, first, I love Japan. As some people know, I've been working in or with Japanese and the Japanese culture since I was about 21 years old. So there's a long history with me and Japan, and I love it. It doesn't mean it's perfect. I mean, it's a very different culture. It has its own unique way of doing things. But boy, I do like it. And the history is fantastic. I always think it's funny because the US talks about its history, and we're about, what, 250 years old, right? When you talk about history in Japan, you're talking about thousands of years. So it's truly a scale that is different than I think what the average person, at least in the Americas, understands. But you talk about the challenges. I was kind of thinking about that earlier this week, and the hard part is that building of trust, right? And I fully understand, right? We all like to deal with people of our own background or culture or habits, whatever they are. And so I understand that. And so it has literally taken a career to kind of build, at least within in the realm of Rome, is to build that relationship of trust so that when we go to our headquarters or when we work with the people in Japan, they actually believe or trust what we're saying.
Mhm.
So I think there's something to be learned there as an industry person, right? Is when we're working with different cultures to make sure that we respect where people are coming from and work to have that trust and confidence in each other. But it's been fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, I love Japan. I love Japanese people. I guess that we have to learn a lot from Japanese story and culture. So you traveled a lot in Japan, not only for work, also for vacation. So what do you like the most about Japan?
There's so many things. Of course, the first thing that comes to mind is food, right? But you could say that about any location, right? I mean, I love, for example, Italy, right? And I'm not saying that just because of yourself, right? But the food is fantastic. I love Spain. The food there is fantastic. But yeah, sure. The food in Japan is awesome. But I would definitely go back to the history and the culture,
Mhm.
right? As you know, Rome is a Kyoto-based company, and historically that was actually the capital of Japan, and so there's a tremendous history there, and so you can go and you can see, the temples, and you can see all
Yes.
the different things that are there that are fantastic. My favorite one is a temple called Kiyomizu-dera. So
Yes.
if oh, do you know it? Yeah, it's amazing, right? It sits up on the hill, kind of in Kyoto, and I think the thing that's pretty amazing about that structure is that all the fasteners that they use are of natural material. So you're not going to find big bolts and stuff like that. What you find are wooden dowels and pins that connect the wood structure to each other. So what do I love about Japan? There's a lot of things, right? But the food's great, the history is great. It's pretty fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, I love Kyoto, my favorite city.
Very
So
nice.
Jay, how have you how have your roles and responsibilities evolved since joining Rome in 2003, as I mentioned first? So what were some interesting moments, great moments or projects that so significantly shaped your career path?
Yeah, so now we have to talk about work. I see. Okay. Uh, there's probably a couple of probably three chapters that I would, if I can call them chapters, right? Chapter one was when I first started with Rohm. I was responsible for the EMS companies, right? So the Jables, the Flextronics, now Flex, Sanmina, these types of companies. And I'll tell you what, wow, what a crash course in learning about the infrastructure of our industry. Whether you're talking about designing in components, whether you're talking about protecting business that goes overseas, contracts, negotiations. The travel just about killed me, but I'll tell you what, it was a very fast and aggressive learning curve in terms of understanding the overall, kind of path that any particular part might take before it gets into an application. The next chapter was as my responsibilities changed to have more domestic responsibilities and design in requirements. What we found was very quickly that the name Rome in the Americas really had very little meaning. And that was a struggle. If you go to Japan and you talk to the average engineer, Rome is the big guy, right? So we're popular. A lot of people use our components. It's a different type of a selling opportunity. But here in the Americas, we're not the big guy, right? I mean, I understand that, right? It's the TIs of the world, it's the OnSemis of the world, and they're great competitors. Love going up against them, but they are the big guys, and so we had to figure out a way to penetrate the mindset of the average engineer. And we did that through basically relationship type selling. And by that, I mean aligning ourselves with companies like Intel or NXP or some of these companies that were creating reference designs. And so we would go into those companies, qualify our part, whether it be a regulator, a standard regulator, or whether it be a PMIC, a power management IC. And the result of that would be that we would basically, as that reference design would get released to the market, it would, quote unquote, it would force the customers to have to give us a call. So that was a great experience and a great chapter. It enabled us to get a little bit more mind share of the average engineer. And then the last chapter, which is still being written, and I know this is near and dear to your heart, is wide-bandgap stuff, right? So the silicon carbide of the world, the GaNs of the world, even IGBTs and all that stuff that's going on right now in the industry. So that chapter is still going. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
So this semiconductor is a semiconductor planet, as I like to say, is a dynamic market. So what strategies have you found most effective when leading teams? So particularly if we are talking about this dynamic and fast-paced semiconductor industry.
Yeah, that's again, these are good questions. They're pretty tough. I think kind of the first one is really to be data driven, right? And being guided by what is actually happening in the market from a data standpoint and reacting to it from that perspective, right? Is making sure that we truly understand who our target customers are from a marketing aspect, and being able to focus in on that and have the data to support why we would want to go after those customers. But then, again, this is a little bit cliche-ish, and I don't mean to say too many things that are cliche-ish, but I think the other part is listening. People will tell you an awful lot of very valuable and important information, if you're listening to them. And so, when I'm working with when our teams here domestically, understanding what people are going through and respecting that, I think, is a big deal. It's funny. I literally just before joining this call with you, I was on a call with one of our managers, and she was trying to explain something to me about our pricing strategy. And frankly, I wasn't following it. I couldn't quite understand what the point was or what she was bringing up. And that wasn't her problem. That was my problem. And so we spent a few minutes, kind of understanding what the strategy was that she was espousing or talking about. And in the end, it had a lot of merit. We finally got through it, or I finally started to understand what she was saying. And so there's merit to it. So to me, that listening portion, when you're talking about the teams and leading teams, and I think that's a pretty important piece of it.
Yeah, job, but not only, so also family. So with the demanding career and growing family, so let me say, how do you manage to be balanced, so to balance between work commitments and spending quality time with your children, especially with the recent addition of your first grandchild?
Oh my gosh, that's a terrible question. I'm not very good at it. I'll be honest with you. I tend to work way too much. And so it is something that I need to improve on, for sure. But you talk about cliches. All those things that people say about being a grandparent, in this case, a grandpa, right? All those things about how great it is, and you can spoil them, and all those things are true. So Addie, her name is Addie. She's still young. She's 11 months old.
Nice.
But wow. All I can say is it's fantastic, right? In terms of being able to spend that time with her when I do get the time. But to really answer your question, the thing that I've tried to be better at is to be in the moment, right? So not having my attention diverted or divided when I'm with family. So whether it's, direct family or friends, whether it's kids or grandkids, whomever it is to focus and to make sure that I'm not, picking up my silly cell phone and answering emails and, doing all those things. But to try and have that focus, I think is something I'm trying to work on.
So Jay, you have a deep passion for outdoor activities and family. So tell me more about your hobby, your activities. You have also experience playing golf, Division One golf too. So I think so during university period, as you mentioned last time. So what is the next plan for the weekend? Next travel, next book, next relaxing?
Yeah, wow. Well, the immediate thing on my list right now is actually a marathon. Unfortunately, my kids convinced me to run a marathon, and it's actually in about 4 weeks. So what am I doing this weekend? I'll tell you what I'm doing this weekend. Tomorrow morning, I have to get up and I have to run 10 miles. What is 10 miles? 10 miles is about what, 15, 16K, something like that. So I have to go do that because otherwise I will die in this marathon. So that's on the list. And then I love golf. Yeah, I've played golf for a long time, and I was super lucky to be able to play competitively. But anymore I don't play competitively, and frankly I probably like it more now than I did when I was playing as a young, just because it's fun. I'm outside and get to enjoy that. So I guess I'm a jock at heart. I do enjoy sports.
Thank you. So Jay, in conclusion, my last one. So looking forward, so what trends, innovation in the semiconductor industry excite you the most? So how do you see Rohm positioning itself in response to these developments? But also advice, suggestion, what advice would you give to young professionals that are entering in this field?
Yeah, I have to go back to the wide bandgap things that we're working on. Rohm has certainly reimagined itself in the last probably 5 to 7 years. The focus going forward is power and analog IC. So all of our investment, our IP, our expansion, our CapEx is really targeted towards these technologies. The interesting thing that we're learning, and that's why I say this chapter is still open, is that we're not just talking about the die, but we're talking about the associated packaging, whether you're talking discrete packages, you're talking about the cooling, the extraction of heat from the applications. So where that comes into play is the type of packaging, the type of adhesion, the sintering and these types of technologies that go into the packaging of our parts or our modules onto a cold plate, the cold plate into the inverter application. All these things are pretty exciting right now. And as you know, there's a lot of change in the industry, right? Where everybody at first was very focused on silicon carbide, and now it's silicon carbide plus IGBT, and trying to figure out those balances, right? So that's pretty important, and we're spending a lot of time focusing on that. But advice to the young professionals, what a good point that is. I think there's a massive responsibility on our part, and it's the old guys, right, or the old folks in our industry. And yes, I'm one of the old folks anymore, right? So, but I think we have a responsibility to nurture the young professionals. And when I'm not just talking about people who are already in the industry, who have recently graduated from college and that sort of thing, but it's really the young generation of engineers or potential engineers that are out there. And there are programs out there. One that comes to mind is First Robotics. You may have heard about that, where basically, elementary and high school kids, both male and female, are part of a group that develop a robot, and there's competitions and whatnot. And they need the funding, they need the mentors, they need people to spend time there. And so I think that's pretty important to take part of that, because soon enough I will be gone, and it will be time for the next generation of kids to come through. And I think we have a responsibility to support that.
Nice. Great. Thank you, Jay. Thanks a lot for your time. It has been a pleasure to talk with you. And so see you next, probably in one of the next Power Electronics conference. Have a good weekend and take care.
Thank you. I look forward to it. And as always, thank you for all you do for the industry and your participation in it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Take care.